Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Brewers Spotlight. I'm your host, and today I have with us
My name is Mike.
Mike. And how long have you been brewing, and how long have you been a member of Boss?
I started brewing in late 1992, so almost 30 years now. And I joined Boss in 2004, so that'd be 18 years with Boss.
Wow, man! So 18 years with Boss, and homebrewing for 30, almost as long as the club's been active. How did you come to find the club? How did that happen?
Well, the funny thing is, I heard about the club shortly after I started brewing because I was buying all my stuff from Country Food and Liquor in Mokina. And Mike Pazan worked there, and he was selling me stuff. He says, "Hey, you should join our club." And I was asking questions about it. I said, "Where do you guys meet?" He says, "Well, we meet up here around, Tinley Park." Like an idiot, I said, "No, that's too far away. I don't want to make that drive every month." So I could have joined way back in 1993, shortly after, but I didn't until 2004 when I ran into somebody else who I was working with somebody who was in the club, and she convinced me to come to a meeting, and that's when I joined.
Right on, right on. So when you started brewing back in '93, what was that first beer you made? Do you remember?
Yeah, the first beer I made was a stout, and it was an extract kit that I bought from Country Food and Liquor. The extract was already hopped, so I didn't even have to throw in the hops. And that was the first one I did. It turned out okay. It turned out good. So I just kept going from there.
And with all of that, I don't really know you for brewing stouts too much. Is that like was that like your go to
Oh
style
yeah,
then? Like
yeah,
you were
yeah.
into the stouts?
Oh yeah, I was big into dark beers back then. I might have told you this before, but the very first dark beer, first craft beer that I ever had was in the mid 1970s, before they even started calling it craft beer. But I was in the liquor store one day and I was buying beer, and this was in the springtime, and they had a 6 pack of Stroh's Bach beer, and I had heard of Bach beer, but
Strosbach.
never had one. So and they were selling it for only $1 a 6 pack, which even back then was cheap. So I thought, okay, for $1 I'll buy a 6 pack. Took it home, had two or three that night. Thought, wow, this has got some taste to it. This is really nice. So I went back the next day and bought 2 cases of it for $1 a 6 pack.
Yeah, why not?
And for the next 3 or 4 years, Stroh's would come out with this every spring, and I would buy it. And after that, I started seeing other dark beers. Falstaff had a dark beer, and that's what they called it. It was called Falstaff Dark, and that's the only thing they told you about it. And you could only get it on tap. They didn't sell them in
Oh, okay.
bottles or cans or anything like that. But that was a decent beer. I'm sure if I had either one of those beers today, I probably wouldn't be that impressed. But back then, those were great beers. So I just gravitated toward the dark beers and stouts, and I still prefer the dark malty beers today.
All right, all right. Um, so into the more malt forward items. Um, I mean, yeah, you're reaching there with the Strohs. I don't remember that story before, but I love hearing it. Um, what overall is your favorite style to brew now, or do you
I
have one? I mean,
Yeah, I still like the dark beers, the English beers, the German beers, the dark ones. I suppose the cream ale is the one I'm best known for, but and I do like that, but I prefer the other beers.
okay, all right. The all right. So favorite style we've talked about. We've talked about what you typically brew. What you what size batch do you brew? You brew a 5 gallon batch, 3 gallon batch. What do you?
Usually 5 gallon. I used to do 10 gallon once in a while, not so much anymore, but yeah, mostly 5 gallon.
Okay, and you brew extract with like specialty grains and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what in all of that gear and the stuff that you're using, what would you say? Do you have like a favorite piece of gear that you really like, or something that really helps your brew day out?
Well, I don't know if I would call this my favorite piece, but it's a piece, and you'd probably never guess what it is, but it's a piece that I just couldn't do without because just about every step along the way in the brewing process, whether I'm brewing or bottling or whatever, I wind up using this. And I bought this about 25 years ago, and it's a utility sink. It's a laundry tub, and I've got it in the basement. I got had the plumber come and hook it up, and I use that for everything. The day I brew, I'll take my brew. I brew on my stovetop in my kitchen. When I need to chill it down, I'll carry it down in the basement, set it in the utility sink, and hook up the cooler to it and chill it down. But I also use that sink the day I bottle because I sanitize bottles in there. If I have to delabel bottles, I'm using it for that. So I couldn't do without that thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're not alone. That's that space to be able to clean, to clear stuff up. Yeah, can't do without it. I totally get that. Do you have a piece of advice or anything that you would pass to a new brewer, somebody that was maybe just joining the club here? What would you say to someone to either encourage them into the hobby or to keep them in the hobby?
Well, to learn about the hobby, I've told people this before. Just read everything you can get your hands on. The books, watch the videos, come to a boss meeting, talk to other brewers. But just learning the process is the most important thing. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then you have a beer for us today, don't you?
I do have.
Can we sample it? Is that okay to?
Absolutely.
Are we allowed to drink here in your living room?
Oh yeah, there's
Awesome. Awesome.
No restrictions here.
And so what are we sharing today?
This is the cream ale.
Thank you. All right, so this is your 2021 Best of Show cream ale.
Well, this isn't the same batch, but it's the same recipe.
Look at that.
This is
Clarity wise,
batch.
foam, good stuff, clear, very nice, very nice. Good head, clean glass, the way it should be, the way the good Lord wanted it. Cheers.
I cleaned them up before you got here.
I like it. So let's break this one down a little bit here. Oh, that's good. That's good. So super clear, real nice foam, good carbonation. And Mike, talk us through what you do here. Like you start off with a really pale extract. I know that, like the palest you can find, right?
Yeah, the last few batches I've used dried extract. I'll buy the extra light dried extract. And in addition to that, I'll use, I think it's a pound or two of rice syrup solids.
Okay. So you're using a little bit of rice to bump it, but not give it too much body.
Right.
Because you don't
or
want
darken it at all.
Yeah. Because that's a nice yellow, and it's not terribly pale. It's a baseball park beer. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's summer and baseball games, right?
That's right.
So what's your hop addition look like? What's your timing?
Well, the guidelines, if you look at the guidelines, you can use pretty much any hops you want. I use Mount Hood, 1 ounce that goes in at the beginning of the boil. And since I'm brewing extract, I know the normal boil time is 1 hour, but I only do 45 minutes because if you go beyond that with extract, particularly with liquid extract, you run the danger of darkening. And I've had that happen.
Yep, I've done it many times myself.
It comes out a little too dark for the style.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Mount Hood hops, a really light extract, slightly shortened boil. What are you using to ferment it? What kind of yeast?
Well, again, if you look at the guidelines, you can use either ale or lager yeast on this. I always use an ale yeast, the Y yeast 1056.
Okay. So you're using 1056, and then you're fermenting standard. Are you fermenting low? Or are you fermenting?
When I pitch, I'll set the temperature controller about 68 degrees. As soon as I see fermentation take off, I'll dial it back a little bit, maybe down to around 64, 65, and I'll leave it there. And generally, what I do is 1 week in the primary, 1 week in the secondary, and then I bottle.
Okay. And then once it's bottled, how long do you tend to sit on it? Because I mean, this is a beer. For those of you that don't know, this is a beer that is one of Mike's specialties, and it's one of the reasons that I was first introduced to Mike in the club was because I was trying to make a cream ale, and everyone said you need to talk to this guy, and the time that and care that Mike puts into this beer, and that's I really want to harp on this, is how long do you typically sit on this before you allow it even out of the cellar after you've bottled?
Well, I bottle condition everything. So when I bottle it, I let it set. Actually, I crank it up to about 75 degrees to make sure it fully carbonates. So that takes 2 weeks. And then, I want it to be crystal clear. So once it's fully carbonated in the bottle, I crank it down to about 34 degrees. I just leave it there, until the beer is gone. And generally, after 2 to 4 weeks, it's fairly clear.
So it's another, it's almost 2 months before you'll let
Just
one
about,
of these
yeah.
see the light of
Yeah.
day, and what a day it becomes once you have one of these. So,
Yeah.
and you were very kind to actually share the full recipe in the book this past year. I know you had given it to me in the past in person, and I'd tried to clone it once and did a terrible job. And so much so that my wife decided to make fun of it while we were together. She had Mike's cream ale and was like, "This is so much better than yours. Why is it so much better?" And I'm, well, it's because it's Mike, right? So it is what it is. But fantastic beer. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. Makes you want to have another.
Well, here you go.
So, oh well, hey, how about that? So, Mike, as we keep going here, tell me about your home brewery. Has a name, does it not?
Yeah, it does.
It does. So, can you tell everyone what your brewery name is?
It's Catface. And the reason for that is I think this was the second batch of beer that I ever brewed. I was using dried yeast, and I was rehydrating, and I had it in a small bowl on the kitchen counter, rehydrating, and I had my back turned, and all of a sudden I hear this lapping sound, and I turn around, and there's my cat on top of the counter, just happily lapping up the yeast. And I yelled at him, and he looks up at me. He's got yeast all over his face. So somebody suggested that I should call it Catface, call that beer Catface. So I just call all my beers Catface beer now. So
It works, man. I like that story a lot. And you just got to brew this at Evil Horse
Right.
not that long ago, and they took that on as well with the name and all. So
Yeah.
it is Catface Cream Ale.
yes, and I told Steve, I says, if you think the name is going to put people off and the beer's not going to sell, because I said technically this is your beer. You paid for all the ingredients and that. It's your beer. So if you want to change the name, no, it's a good name. We'll go with that. So okay, so
And it's selling pretty well, from what I understand.
that's what I've heard. Yeah,
I know we were ecstatic to go and share beers at Evil Horse the day that it opened,
Right.
and or the day that it dropped, the beer dropped, and it was just as good at the pro level. Again, same amount of care when you have a brewer like Steve helping you out.
oh
with
yeah,
it, so
yeah. You can't do any better than Steve.
for sure, for sure. So, any parting shots for anybody here as we go out there?
I don't know, just the whole point of the whole reason I brew is just simply to have fun. I mean, that's why you do any hobby.
Absolutely.
If it's not fun, why bother? But I've had several hobbies over the years, and typically I'll do something for a few years and then drop it. But I've been at this now for almost 30 years, and this is the one hobby that I really get some fulfillment out of.
Yeah. No, it's great. I recommend it for anybody that's got time and patience, loves to cook, loves different flavors of, exploring different flavor profiles, stuff like that. It's very culinary based.
Yeah.
Like if you like a lot of different types of food and
Yeah,
cooking.
yeah. I've over the years I've had guys ask me, they've been thinking about getting into brewing, and they say, I don't know if I can do that. And the one question I ask them is, can you cook? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, well, yeah, I can cook. I say, if you can cook, you can brew beer. Because it is basically the same thing. You're following a recipe. It's not that much different.
Yeah, it's all the sanitation after. Right?
That's the big thing, yeah.
That's the key. Yeah, it's like, hey, can you cook and then do the dishes?
Yeah.
That's the key. That's the key. So very good. Well, cheers to you, Mike. Appreciate everything.
Cheers,
and cheers to everyone out there. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.